Behind the Dish is sponsored by DBAT. Check out dbat.net for baseball and softball products, franchise information, and to find a location near you. And now your host, John Piper.
Welcome to Season 2 of Behind the Dish. I'm John Piper, and pleased to be joined by not only one, but two Major League Scouts, Tom McLamore and Max Semler. How are you guys?
Great, man. Good to see you, John.
Great to be here. Happy to give you some information and hopefully share some good information for all the players out there.
Yeah, the players that tune in, they want to learn, hey, what can they do to get better, get to the next level, and that's what the show's all about. So thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We were talking off air, combined 58 years of Major League Scouting experience. That's just phenomenal.
Well, it certainly doesn't feel like that long for me anyways, darn it.
Well, you obviously Max looks like he's been working that long, but, I started at a very young age. I was a high school coach and started as a bird dog back in the late 70s, actually early 80s. So it's been at it a while.
Well, Tom, we were talking, you earned your ranks as a 25-year high school coach in New Mexico, the first inductee into the High School Hall of Fame there in New Mexico. So congratulations. That's what an achievement.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've always said if you surround yourself with enough good people and enough good players, something good's going to happen, because it certainly wasn't me, but I certainly had a good program, and baseball is very important in Farmington.
Well, Tom, let's start with you. 25 years in the high school ranks. A lot of the players we see at the DBAT academies and around the country, for that matter, hone their game on the high school fields or even before that, and then they strive to get to the next level and play college. Very hard to get to the pro ball, as you both know. But what were some of the things you saw that really stood out as a high school coach back in your early days in New Mexico for some of your players?
Well, the game really hadn't. I mean, it hasn't changed since Abner Doubleday in aspect of what skills are required for players to be successful, and really in how I got into scouting part of it. I was coaching in a state tournament, and a guy came up to me that was working with the Cubs and said, we don't have anybody in this area. How would you like to bird dog for us? Just because I was in an area where baseball was vital. It was a big deal in Farmington. So being able to see that and being able to be around players in Farmington. I mean, I was telling some guys yesterday, I go back to Manny and Ken Griffey Jr. and Larkin, and so many great players have been there through the years. And I grew up as a young coach watching those guys, so you get a pretty good eye for what talent looks like.
Max, switching gears to you, you've been at it for 25 years at the major league level. You've traveled, I don't know how many miles a year you average on your vehicle, but you've seen a lot of ball players come. What are some of the things that really stood out over the years that differentiated some of the players, both on and off the field? I know you judge their character, obviously their tools, but what are some of the things that stood out for you as a scout?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the way that kids, the good ones, approach the game. Their work ethic, the way they conduct themselves on and off the field, I think is a big plus. A lot of these guys, at this point in time are famous because of the advent of social media, the media out there, the access to the email, the internet, that type of stuff. So I think guys have, throughout time, those guys with good makeup, those guys with a good approach to the game, on and off the field, have really proven themselves over history to be good players, and not only good players, but good teammates. I think that's a key point that we always see. There's a lot of guys with talent, a lot of guys with ability, but a lot of these players with good makeup have a chance to rise above the other ones who don't.
Kate Griffiths, the founder of DBAT, just popped in here. I had a chance to say hi to both you guys. He did mention in all sincerity that you're two of the hardest working scouts he's ever been around, so that's a sincere compliment. Like I said, a lot of early mornings to get on the road and a lot of late nights filling out some scouting reports. Are there ever days that you're on the road heading back maybe from West Texas to Dallas and thinking, man, why am I still doing this?
Absolutely. No question. You know, and it's, you just have those days where you're driving along and you've had one of those days where you've driven all those miles and you show up at the ballpark and the guy you go see isn't quite what you were hoping for. You know, what you heard along the way about a certain player, you know, that's frustrating. But at the end of the day, you know, I've been doing this 25 years now. I've got a master's degree and beyond in education. So there's a lot of different things I could have been doing. But ultimately, it's the love of the game and it's the love of the opportunity to be out there and just find that player that somebody else hasn't seen. That's the driving factor about it. But, yeah, obviously with anything that anybody does, you have questions about what am I doing out here driving at midnight, dodging deers along two-lane roads. But at the end of the day, we love to do it, and it's part of our DNA. It's what we want to do. We want to find players, and we want to find good ones, and we want to be successful.
How about you, Tom? What keeps driving you to seek out that next great player?
I think number one's the love of the game. You know, I've been in love with this game since I was an infant, and you know, been around it a long time. And I'm not quite 70. I'm 67 years old, but I've been doing this a long time, and I still throw, you know, probably 10 to 15 buckets of baseballs a week to kids, and still teaching the game. I love the aspect of players learning and then being driven to see players. It's like looking for gold. You know, it's you know, you're on the road late or whatever, and you're coming back in. You're going, why in the world am I doing this? It's because you have a great love to find that one guy, and it's a gamble. You know, it's a shot in the dark sometimes looking for guys, but certainly it's certainly a thrill when you do find them.
We were talking before the show started, you know, Behind the Dish is presented by DBAT. And once you retired from high school coaching, Tom, you joined Kay Griffiths and Kyle Griffiths over in Addison, Texas, just a few months after they had opened the doors as the director of camps and clinics, and you ran some showcases. Tell us a little bit, as we celebrate the 20-year anniversary this month, about the early years at DBAT when you first started.
Well, I think it's really relevant to look back at the fact that Cade was in love with the game. Kyle was a very bright business, you know, young man. These guys are like my kids even at that time, and now they're like brothers. But watching them grow through this, and they surrounded themselves with some outstanding people, and of course Craig's support, and you know, all the people behind the scenes that had things going at DBAT initially really got it off the ground and got it moving. But they were both, and everybody that they hired was very dedicated toward kids. And it's really neat to see in the fact that this is the place that's still surviving. This is a place that's very successful all around the world. And it was based on some simple thoughts, and that's the development of players, you know, and teaching kids the game of baseball, which is just a passion. So it's really neat to see that passion come full scale, you know, come all around the world and so successful.
Tom, you had a chance to see a young and impressionable 12-year-old Clayton Kershaw, along with Matthew Stafford, now that, you know, quarterback in the NFL, come up through the baseball ranks. What do you recall about those two, especially Kershaw, as you work with them developing their game as 12-year-olds?
Actually, those kids came through. I believe Chris Elstein had a team that he was bringing in. Probably our third year here, maybe, and they came in as a team, as a group, and came in. And Clayton was a little kind of pudgy little guy, had some life in his arm, and a good-looking kid. And obviously, what he grew into is quite astounding. And you can certainly say the same thing for Matty Stafford. I mean, he was quite an athlete. He could have been a pro baseball player very easily and been very successful also. So, a lot of it's funny to look back and think about youth of kids and how kids have come through this program and developed. I remember the first time I ever saw Billy McKinney. He was in cutoffs and flip-flops, and I was doing a hitting lesson with his brother, and he's over there probably 8 years old swinging a 32-inch bat.
Wow. I
went in and got the guys and said, come look at this kid. Watch this kid.
Max, how about you? I know normally you both are scouting, young high school players or even some college players, but Has there been any young kids, I know primarily you've scouted in the Fort Worth Metroplex, any kids that got your attention as a, 10, 12, 14-year-old kid?
It's hard to say. There have been so many players that in general I catch them when they're a little bit older. But I think the one guy that kind of stands out for me, Trent Clark. Trent Clark was at the Texas Scouts Association workout for the area codes and what have you. And I jot down some notes. After his sophomore year, I just said, interesting left-handed bat. And that's all I put down. I wanted to track him down to find out a little bit more about him. He was on some unbeknownst team that I'd never heard of, but ultimately, I put him on a fall scout team I had, and my instincts were right. He could swing the bat. Obviously, became a first-round draft pick, but that was one of the guys that I was really kind of, on early. He wasn't a big name. He wasn't famous, but I put him on that fall scout team, and gee, Merry Christmas. He ultimately proved that I was. My instincts were correct on that one. I think the other one that comes to mind, again, another one, Dustin May. Dustin was a kid who was at the area code workouts and didn't create a lot of attention. I think he pitched in the game, but it was rather pedestrian, rather ordinary. I ended up taking him to a tournament that the New York Mets used to run, and goodness, he threw in the fall and ultimately became quite a prospect and has done really, really well. I think this past year ended up in Double-A. But those two guys, along the road you see players. We see a lot of guys throughout the years. You just jot down some notes and you follow up, and next thing you know, they become really good players. They've grown and matured. They've worked hard at their craft, and they've become pretty good baseball players, and ultimately they become really good baseball players down the road.
Max, you spent 10 years most recently with the New York Mets, and I had a chance to go to Citi Field for the first time just this past summer. Man, what a beautiful ballpark they have there in New York.
Yeah, it's a great ballpark. They've really done a great job over there. And hopefully they'll have some success. Not too much success at the expense of the Blue Jays, but yeah, it's a wonderful ballpark and really good people working over there, and I hope they continue to do well.
Now, this question is for both of you, and I'll let Tom go first. But in your opinion, what's the best way for a player in nowadays to get seen? Would it be high school ball, their summer travel, select ball, or we see a lot of showcases around the country, between Perfect Game, other organizations running showcases, Five Tools. What, in your opinion, is the best way for a high school player to get the attention of the college recruiters and the Major League Scouts?
Well, I think being accessible, number one, and I think I have to applaud facilities such as DBAT and a number of other places that are opening their doors for people so that kids can develop. But kids have certain skills, and if they have a high level of skills, they need to be exposed. And whatever they can do, I will assure you that we do see players. We're out and we see a lot of players. It's not, you don't have to spend all your money going to every showcase in the world and doing all that, because once we see you and have an attraction towards your skills or whatever the case might be, we're going to follow it up and we're going to find, other things. A lot of players are, to me, and this is my attitude, but I feel like players are traveling all over the country to be seen, and they're being seen right here in the Metroplex, or, same thing in their own hometowns. We do our work. As you said earlier, we're out and beating the brush, and we're at a lot of ballparks seeing a lot of players.
I see those comments on social media where parents will travel 400 miles to play in a tournament. They'll be, let's say they're in Atlanta, Georgia. They say, hey, we traveled all this way to play a team from our own hometown in Denton, Texas, in Atlanta, Georgia.
And be seen by the same scouts.
Yeah. How about you, Max? What are your thoughts on, in today's marketplace, getting the attention of the college recruiting coordinators as well as the Major League Scouts?
Guys just need to play. Used to be there were secrets. you could hide a guy out. You could get a guy, and I've only been in Texas for 10 years, but